distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains white. From a distance, the ocean meets the stream, and the eagle takes to flight. From a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the voice of hope, it's the voice of peace, it's the voice of every man. From a distance, we all have enough, and no one is in need. And there are no guns, no bombs, and no disease, no hungry mouths to feed. From a distance, we are instruments marching in a common land, playing songs of hope, playing songs of peace. They're the songs of every man. God is watching us, God is watching us, God is watching us from a distance. From a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at war. From a distance, I just cannot comprehend what all this fighting is for. From a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. And it's the hope of hopes, it's the love of loves, it's the heart of every man. It's the hope of hopes, it's the love of loves. This is the song of every man. And God is watching us, God is watching us, God is watching us from a distance. Oh, God is watching us, God is watching, God is watching us from a distance.
Good evening and Om Shanti. Om Shanti is a greeting of peace. It means I am a being of peace. Is the sound okay? Yeah? So I'm very honored tonight to be here in Port of Spain. It's my first visit to Trinidad, and I've been here for like 3 days, but it seems that I've been here forever. It's been so nice, so beautiful to meet my brothers and sisters from this very, very special place. And I want to express my deep gratitude for the possibility of being in this pastoral auditorium. It reminds me of my youth. When I was a teenager, I was a volunteer at a hospital, and I was also, I don't know if you have here in Trinidad an organization of a Catholic church called Caritas. Do you have this here? Caritas? It's like a charity. So I used to represent youth on the board, and we used to do different campaigns. I was very, very passionate for that which we have in common, which is to serve humanity. So when I come to a place like this, and the vibration of God's remembrance, of sincere prayers, it touches something very dear to my heart. So I've been asked to talk about being fearless. And in the world today, everything has become so vulnerable, so unstable. Is the sound okay? I just feel I'm going to take the mic. I'd rather hold it. Otherwise it has me. Okay, I feel more comfortable like this. So when we see that things are not going the way we would like them to go, and when we feel that so much of people's lives are not exactly in their hands, there can be so many things that are felt as a threat or as dangerous or anything that could make us feel in some form fearful. And I think that fear is really running the world today. And when you wake up in the morning, you read the news, then you think of your own future, you think of your work, your family, your children, your grandchildren. You see the direction of things, and it makes you feel a little bit afraid, doesn't it? Right? So people have fear that they might lose their jobs, that they might get sick. This fear is connected to loss of some sort. So I would love to ask you what makes you feel afraid. Does anybody want to say? What makes you fearful? Anyone would like to say? What are we afraid of? Sometimes we're afraid of people's opinions. We're afraid of not being loved or cared for. Sometimes for people who are aging, they become very insecure. What's going to happen to me? Who's going to take care of me? So anything could be the reason for fear. But fear is connected to attachment. Fear is connected to being identified with things. We could be afraid of becoming old. Do you think I always had white hair? But our body does change, right? And the destiny of our body is to age. But so and now in the presence of AI, there's a lot of fear of being left sidelined, right? And it's very easy for that to happen, because unless we learn a little bit about artificial intelligence, we are very, very soon can become technologically illiterate. And so it's threatening. You go to the bank and everything has changed, everything is online, so you could feel very afraid, especially my generation and older as well, no? So this is when we also value young ones a lot. Maybe your grandchildren, you buy some new device and you don't know how this works, so you need help. So anything could make us feel vulnerable. So also an expression of fear is something that is also very powerful in today's world, which is anger. Anger is the expression of the fear that the ego feels when it is threatened, when it feels threatened. So anger is a learned behavior. When we get angry, when we get upset, anger has so many faces. And beneath that, there is some form of insecurity. And how do we feel when we get angry? Do we feel good? Huh? No? We don't feel good. So why don't we feel good? Sometimes you think you have a right to speak in a loud voice, you have a right to answer back, you have a right to complain, sometimes even feel victimized. But we don't feel good. So it's a very clear sign that anger is a learned behavior. It's not who we are. It's just how I am at the moment. But it's not who I really am, what I really am. So any negative emotion, whether it's jealousy, imagine how much fear is behind jealousy. Feeling threatened out of comparison. Any negative emotion is not part of my spiritual DNA. It's not part of my essence. When we're afraid, we feel really bad. So we need to come home we need to come in touch with what makes me feel safe. And it doesn't matter what's happening around us. And we want to come back home to our inner calm. We want to come back home to who we truly are. We weren't always forever fearful. We just became afraid of something. And that's because I let go, or I forgot of my true power. So when we have a deeper look into the self, and we are able to perceive and recognize our true spiritual nature, is when we can trust. We can trust ourselves, we can trust a situation, we can trust others, because we are we are essentially good. You know, when we go to serve in Argentina, we serve in jails. And it's so interesting because people in jail have been deprived of their freedom because of their fierceness, because of their violence. And because we go there to do spiritual service, we want to take them a message, we want to bring them close to God, we want to make them develop their self-esteem. So our vision of our brothers or sisters in jail is that elevated vision. And it's so interesting because they are dangerous people, right? You wouldn't like to meet them on a dark street, no? Because they have committed different crimes. But when we are together, when we look at each other as spiritual beings, you can always feel the original goodness. You know, we started service in Argentina many years ago in jails. We were asked by the Ministry of Justice to come, and the woman who took us there, who invited us, was a woman who was also the dean at the law university. And one day she was walking out of the university, and a mother, a lady who was sitting, our law university is like the Parthenon in Greece. You know, it's like a monumental university. And she was walking down these stairs in a rush to go to the ministry. And this woman kind of pleaded her and said, please, could you teach these careers at university? My son is in jail. He's such a good man. Can you give him the chance to be educated? This woman was so touched, so touched. She went to the ministry and she thought, why not? Why don't we teach law in jail? And so she had things happen in a way that now are in jail. People can study law, and we have many lawyers who have graduated in the jail. And when she invited us to come and serve there, we were teaching self-esteem, we were teaching values, positive thinking, how to develop self-respect. She said, there are two questions that you, the Brahma Kumaris, and us, the people in the ministry who are in charge of the law career, we will never ask. We will never ask people why you are here and until when. She said, because we are educators. It is not our business why they are there. And it is so interesting how when we look at each other as spiritual beings, how the flame of hope ignites. And we have, in fact, when I return from this journey, I'm going to go for the International Yoga Day celebration in Argentina, but then I'm heading 400 kilometers south for a training for all the tenants of a jail, and we will be meeting young inmates. And it's so beautiful to see that whatever crime they committed, for whatever they became so fearful, that is not their nature. That is not who they are. Intrinsically, we are all beings of peace. And it's so wonderful when we see each other for who we are, how we connect. You know, our original bond is of a brotherhood of mankind. And although we have to walk in the streets, we have to be part of everything. And we have no control of anything happening around us. But we can be in self-control. And I'll tell you a little story I was sharing with the sisters in the car. You know, in Brazil, in a city called Belo Horizonte, this was many years ago, we had a young girl. She was 15. She was so sweet. She was one of our students. She was still going to school. So she walked from her neighborhood, which was a very vulnerable neighborhood, and she had to walk to catch the bus. So she was walking on her own in her school uniform with her little backpack, and she had wrapped her head with a white cloth, like a shawl. And she knew she was on her own, but suddenly she felt a presence. And she heard steps, and she felt those steps were coming right towards her. And suddenly a man jumped right in front of her and said, "Are you not afraid?" And she looked at him and said, "When I was alive, I was." What do you think the man did? He ran away. He thought he had met a ghost. No? Now, my question to you is, was that a rational response? Did she have a moment to think? It was an intuitive response. You know, intuition comes from the Latin inteo, in the divine, connected to God. Because she was practicing remembering God. And this was the awareness in which she was walking. So she had no control of the man, of the surrounding, of anything around her. But even at a time in which she was in danger, she was alone, she was a young girl, but she did the right thing. So becoming fearless is not about controlling anything other than my own response to whatever danger or threat or situation I may be facing. So she was very courageous. She used to come alone, and she came to class, then she went to school every single day. So courage is not about, courage won't make any danger any smaller than what it is, but it's the quality upon I will act in a way that will allow me to sail through anything that could at any point harm me or damage me. So this practice of, on one hand, being aware of who I am, because Tanya was her name. She was very cool. She was very peaceful. She heard the steps, but she continued to walk. And then she said this. So you never know what your response will be. You don't need to know. You never know ahead of time the dangers or things that might happen. You never know if at work someone might say something very violent and you could feel, threatened or vulnerable for any reason, sometimes just out of rejection and the fear of not being included or valued. It could be at home, with your family, with your friends, the fear of being left aside. But, being peaceful will enable me to have the clarity I need to do the right thing at the right time. So we need to know more about the power that lies within ourselves. Sometimes we are very extroverted, we're only, out there for everything and for everyone, but we're not in contact with my true power. So this is why we would feel weak. And then if we start thinking, what if this happens and what if that happens? If you think of the fears that you have been holding on to for some time, did anything ever happen? Sometimes fear is just imagination, What if I'm run over by a truck? What if I crash? What if anything happens to my child? What if I lose? What if, and it doesn't happen. So it's a drainage of my very precious energy of thought power. And it's just in hands of imagination, which is also my creation, right? Things could happen, but if they do happen, I will also be able to do. When I was very young, I set off on a long trip. I ended up in India, where I met the Brahma Kumaris, but I was a backpacker, and I was going to do a trek on the Himalayas, and my lungs were not very strong. I had gone through some episodes, so my father went to see my pneumonologist, and he said to him, Moira is going to go up the Himalayas. And he was so afraid, what's going to happen to her? And the doctor said, she can only go as high as she can. She's not going to go any higher. If she can't go high, she won't go high. And he said to me, that made me so peaceful, just to be realistic, and stop imagining that anything could happen. I'm not going to fall off the Himalayas. I may not even get up there anyway. So then he felt this deep sense of trust. And then when I came back, I said, and many friends used to ask him, where is she? And I was traveling around. They never knew where I was. Every now and then I phoned home. And so he said, he kept telling people, if she gets into trouble, she will get out of it as well. And so then his friends, when I came back, said to me, your dad really trusts you. Your dad, he didn't know where you were until you called, because I was doing my route with telephone calls. I never knew where I was heading. And he said, but he was so cool because he just trusted you. So what a big part does trust play in our lives, when it's your relationship with your children, with your spouse or your husband, your colleagues at work, people in the community, when we trust. When we trust. When I have self-trust. But I can only have self-trust if I know myself. What about me do I trust? Because I'm not only just peaceful, I am also loving. And sometimes we're in the midst of a conflict, there's a lot of tension, and we think, what's going to happen to our family? I want to tell you a little story. It's a personal story. When my father passed away, we had to deal with inheritance, and sometimes this is the time when things become tricky in family life. Do you agree? Yeah? It's when we who have been united and a fun family, when we become enemies to each other. And it was a tough journey, may I tell you. And my brother used to say, okay, when we divide everything we have to divide, goodbye to the family. Each one goes their way, and that's it. And I thought, my God, you never say goodbye to your family. Your family will be with you till your last breath. But he was so convinced, that's it. We don't need to see each other. We don't need to talk to each other again. I was shocked. But things were so rough, I thought maybe we might not meet. But I was not. And then I said to myself, I really value family life. This is what spirituality is about. So there's no way we can do without the family. No way. So things were happening, everything got sorted out, and then it was as if 5 went in all different directions, and I said, okay, this is when I have to start. I have to make sure I bring my family back together again. And the last time we had the last conversation, my sister said, Moira, on the chat of all of us, my younger brother has posted a very rude, aggressive message to you. So at that point, I said, okay, I have a choice. Do I listen to it? Do I allow that to hurt me? Or do I delete it? What do you think I did? I deleted. That's what I did. I said, why am I going to dirty my heart if then I have to spend time cleaning it? Better I don't even listen to it. Until today, he doesn't know that I haven't heard his message. And so I thought, I have to do the repair work. And sometimes you think, maybe, you're afraid. What is he going to say? Is he going to answer the phone? We could have fear for such silly little things. And I was so determined, and I said, I have a pure intention. I'm going to trust my heart. But I'm also going to take God's help. I'm not going to do it alone, because he had already mistreated us quite a bit. So I said, okay, we used to talk, let's do this together. So after a couple of months, I called him for Christmas. So I called him on, expected dates, Christmas, his birthday, and then I said, okay. And he didn't answer my call. And so he saw that I had called him. And then he called me and said, Moira, you called me. And he was kind of hesitant like this, because he must have thought, after the message I sent, she'll never talk to me again. And I said, yes, I just wanted to know if you're okay. And he said, as if some tension released from his heart. And then I started, calling him for different, and for no reason, ultimately, for no reason. And then I invited him to come and visit our Brahma Kumari's retreat center. It's called Paradise. It's a beautiful place. I said, why did you come? So I organized a tea party with my twin sisters. And I realized it doesn't take much to repair a conflict. But sometimes we may be holding on to a fear, something that hurt my heart, and I'm protecting that wound, and I'm afraid that anything could make it worse. But when we trust, it builds a bridge that goes beyond negativity, that takes us beyond the ill feelings, the criticism, the fear, the anger, And you won't believe it, but we are back together again. We have been, my parents created such a fun family, Anybody could come home, people would stay overnight, friends of any of the five of us could come, and when we were not there, they'd spend time with my parents. It was such a good place. And suddenly we had become enemies. And there's no need to hold on to that. And deep down, between, rejection is attachment. Attachment is anything that is affecting me, which doesn't allow me to be affectionate, which doesn't allow me to express my love, which is holding me in the past. So I'm stuck. I can't move forward. So I learned from this that it doesn't take much to give a step of courage and be humble. I mean, he could have said anything, but he didn't, because the seed of my thoughts created powerful feelings that brought us back together. So what can we trust? You say, but this person, the way he's behaved, the way he treats me, she treats me, I can't trust them. But I can trust my pure thoughts. I can trust my pure feelings, the purity of my intention that will take me a long way into healing, harmonizing, and bringing us back together. Huh? You think it's possible? Yeah? And it just takes a step of courage. It doesn't mean that we're going to control anyone or anything, but it means that I will offer the best of me. And if I plant the seed of a pure thought, a powerful thought, in the garden of my mind, I am bound to get the fruit of that. So even if someone is violent with you, even if someone is ignoring you, even if someone is bullying you, or criticizing you, criticism has become like a cancer. And we're afraid of what people might say. If you hear criticism, how do you feel? Do we react? And if we do, it's because we're attached. But if I have a deep sense of self-respect, if I have a deep feeling of dignity of who I am, then it doesn't matter. If you work, sometimes when we do workshops in companies, I tell people, a company can only pay you for a number of hours and a certain amount of tasks. Whatever else you give the company is your gift. So when they hire you because you're an honest person, or because you have integrity, or because you're responsible, because you're creative, they can only pay you for the time and the task. Your creativity is your gift to them. How much should they pay for you being creative? For you being a great team player? For you being, flexible or sweet or humble or loving to people? Is there a price to who you really are? That is the gift you are. So if people value you, by the way, I don't know about Trinidad, but people earn so little. The salaries are so behind the cost of living in Argentina, so you have to realize that they're not paying for what you offer. No? But then if people don't value your work, you may be giving your best, you may be doing your best, and you're there just expecting someone to say, this is very good, this is very precious. But if I have a sense of self-worth, if I value my time, my thinking, my presence, my energy, it doesn't matter what they think. And you know what? If they don't treat you well, maybe they're not worthy of you. How about that? Maybe someone will walk past you and offer you a better job. So we're not stuck to things forever. But sometimes the way we think, we're afraid that if I change my job, I won't find another job. And today, having a job is good fortune. There are many unemployed people. I don't know about Trinidad, but I can tell you in Argentina, the level of poverty is so high and unemployment is so high. But even then, Because fortune follows your powerful thinking. Your powerful thoughts create fortune. So once I was living in Chile, and Brahma Kumaris was being very successful there. We were serving the government, we were doing things in universities, we were serving in hospitals, we were doing so much. It was such fun and so creative. People were so open to spirituality. And suddenly, our coordinator for Latin America said, Moira, can you return to Argentina? And so the Chileans were saying, now that everything is so successful here, you're going to go there. What's going to happen? And I said, success is our shadow. Success is nowhere. It's not in a place. It's in your mind. It's about what I think. It's about what I feel. And that is about who I am. So coming back home to know myself, touching base with my true power. And I'm not only peaceful, I am loving. And I am true. So truth, power, peace, love, happiness is what we really are. And, as Tanya was so, I think that innocence is like a shield of protection. Do you think so as well? Sometimes innocent people, they don't even know they're in face of danger, but they're so innocent. And sometimes it just happens that nothing does happen to them. Have you seen how horses react with little kiddies? If a little child comes near a horse, the horses stay completely still. And people will be panicking, they might kick the little boy or the little girl, and the horse just stays still. It's as if, when I've seen that happening, I feel it's like they can sense the innocence, the vulnerability of a child. And that is its protection, So we don't need to be too clever about things. We can also be innocent, And a very nice practice is cultivating having good wishes, creating good feelings for myself and for others. We all deserve the best, but it can only be the fruit of pure and powerful thinking and good feelings. So when we vibrate this, maybe you go into a new job or whatever, sometimes even going into medical places, trying to get your tests done. Sometimes they're so hostile, it's like they treat people in such a way, but if our vibration, if our feelings are respectful, if we are gentle, suddenly they may be treating everybody in a way, but when you come, they look at you in a different way. Have you had that experience? So we get what we send out to the universe as well. So our safety is not about having control of everything and everyone around us. It's about controlling our own mind and making it a beautiful garden where I plant the best seeds. Because every seed I plant in my mind as a thought will create a feeling. If I tell you now, can you all think of someone that you love? Can you see it on the screen of your mind? He or her? Can you see it? You're thinking of someone you love? Yes? This side, you're thinking of someone you love? How are you feeling? Tell me, how are you feeling? Louder. You feel joy, you feel happiness. What are you feeling? Huh? Warmth. And if I now tell you, think of someone who is your favorite provoker of reactions. Do we all have one? We might have more than one. Do you agree? But let's think of one, the one that presses the buttons that makes me react. Can you think of that one? Do you have that one on the screen of your mind? Him or her? Yes? What are you feeling now? What are you feeling? Huh? Fear? What else? Anger? Okay, don't think about it anymore. Huh? But what can we learn? What connections do our thoughts have with our feelings? Is there any connection? Yeah? Yes? So what we think creates what we feel. So if I am courageous, how will I feel? I will feel strong. I will feel safe. I will feel capable. And let me tell you, it doesn't mean that we don't need help. You know, sometimes things can be very tricky. And I may have the courage, but I don't know what to do. So I can take advice. I can take help. Suppose you have to cross a park which is unsafe. We're not Tanya, but maybe we have to walk along a dark street. And we know it can be dangerous. Well, we have to be wise enough to take another route or wait until someone else comes. So we walk together. So it doesn't mean that we need to be naive, you know, or too innocent in a way that I put myself in a vulnerable situation. So I need to use my wisdom. And it's only when I can stay calm that I see clearly. You see, when we get angry, have you ever tried to do anything creative once you were very angry? Did you manage to do something really creative? Yeah? No? What do we want to do when we get angry? What is the first thing that comes to my mind? I say, oh, I wish I could go and lie down. We want rest because anger devastates me. See? And it's the fear that lies within that, you know, let's say you're together doing a project and I have an idea and it's not heard, it's not valued, it may not even be carried out. So that fear of not being considered, it's a ego. It's the ego behind that feels threatened, you know? When we raise our voice and other people feel afraid of me, it's because they're not afraid of me, they're afraid of my ego. Because who we are is really peaceful. Who we are is we're spiritual beings. We are that being of light, being expressed through this body. We are that powerful energy that is expressed through your eyes, expressed through your smile, expressed in your attitudes. It's the energy behind the words we choose to speak. You know, sometimes we don't hold important conversations because we are afraid of the outcome. So we can prepare. We can say, okay, you know, maybe you're not communicating with your young adult children because they're doing their thing and they've left you aside, or there are some things that you don't want to talk about because you're afraid they'll be upset. So you're carrying a burden, and you're deprived of a flow of connection with them. And maybe you're even afraid of your children. You know, what will they say if I tell them what I think? But then we can prepare. You know, when we were dealing with our inheritance, one of my sisters is also a student of the Brahma Kumaris. Sometimes we used to drive 500 kilometers home, and when we came back, when we had been fighting and, I used to tell Cynthia, we failed. You know, we have to tell God, we have failed you. You know, we didn't represent any quality. And so we said, next time because we were caught up in our own emotions. It was no one was to blame for how I feel and how I manifest. So we prepared. We said, okay, next time, let's be clear what needs to be communicated. Let's, you know, create an agenda for our meeting so we make sure that we get the message through. It doesn't mean that, you know, out of fear you need to be suppressed and you cannot say what you need to say. You don't negotiate what you need to negotiate. So courage is this energy that makes you feel very safe. You do what you have to do respectfully. And being detached means that I will not be affected by what others do with that. But I have I have to be very stable within. And it's much easier said than done. Don't you think so? So we need help. And this is where divine protection is so important. And we may find ourselves in very unknown territory. And at that time, we would expect God to do something for me, don't we? So He's there for us. He is our parent. He is the source of peace. He is the source of love. He is the being of light, the Father of all souls, of all the human family. It doesn't matter how different we are, we really all are brothers and sisters, because we are the children of the One. And being His children, we have a right to His care, to His power, to His protection, to His guidance. Sometimes we need to take decisions, and out of fear we may not be doing so. So we can, we need more silence. We need to go within. We need to speak to Him. We need to let Him know what I'm feeling. But then I also need to listen what He has to say, because sometimes it could be just me speaking. Sometimes we tell God, you should do this, you should do that, protect him here, protect my child there, give me a job. Do we think He doesn't know what His role is? If your baby children, and I'm talking to the mothers, when they were hungry, they said, bring me the bottle, warm up the milk. You would have felt a little bit odd if a baby told you what to do. You said, I'm your mother. I'm here to take care of you. I'm here to feed you. No? So we as children have a right over Him. We as children need His company. We need the closeness of a relationship. In Brahma Kumaris we teach meditation. And sometimes people have, the idea that meditation is we have to sit in a bit of a obliged position with our hands like this, and we have to, sit aside or be isolated and give time and make our mind blank. What? Because if I told you we have to meditate every day, many hours a day, what would you tell me? Possible? Not possible? So what do we think meditation is? If I tell you, it's about being awake, conscious. It's about being aware of not only who I am, but what is my power. It's about being able to discern what is true and what is illusion, to be able to take decisions that I can trust and others can also trust. Is that something we would like to do every day? Yes? Do we want to do it only when we are on holidays, on weekends, after work? Or do we want to do that all the time? Because this is natural. When we are afraid of something, we fell asleep. When we get angry, we fell asleep. We forgot. We forgot who we are. We forgot who we belong to. We forgot, why am I here? What's the purpose of what I'm doing? You see? How important it is to wake up every morning and say, yes, another day. Because my life is full of meaning. Because I'm contributing to society in a significant way, being who I am. And it's quite different to think that the importance of my contribution is about what I do. Some people are radiating peace and love on a deathbed. They may be in hospital. They may be too old or too young. So it's about who we are, not what we do, that matters. So when we have this sense of deep spiritual identity, we understand why we are here and how does the world need me. Sometimes just your mere presence beside your children, your grandchildren, in your family, in your neighborhood, just your presence could mean so much, such a means of safety to others. And you're not even aware, you're just that shining star, shining your light. Maybe sweeping your home, maybe doing your shopping, maybe contributing in a very significant professional way, a very visible or invisible way. But it's the energy we are radiating into the world that counts. Imagine if our thoughts were clouds of different colors. What would the cloud coming from your mind look like? What color would it look like? Huh? Is it a bright color? Is it dark? Is it gray? What is it? Huh? So this is what we're contributing. What reaches people first is not my words, it's my vibrations. So this is, if we take these things into account and you say, okay, I need to talk, I want to negotiate, a rise of my salary. Sometimes it's not so easy. You feel a little shy, a little unworthy, or a little, you're in a mode of complaint. But if you prepare, if you say, I need to have this conversation, and you set yourself in your self-respect, your self-worth, you say, I deserve a better pay, a better payment. I'll tell you the last story. I was living in Chile. I was working 4 hours for my brother-in-law. And I'm Argentinian, so I was in a foreign country. And Daddy Janki, the head of our organization, she visited Chile. And she said, Moira, do you work? And I said, yes, Daddy, I work. But I don't get enough money. And so I said, I was working part-time. So I said, I think I have to work 8 hours. Because I was giving, part-time to my job, but then the rest I was doing the service of the community. And so I was with another sister, a senior sister, who was translating, because Daddy spoke Hindi. And Daddy said to her, tell her not to be naive. And it was such an odd term. Have you ever heard Daddy use that word, naive? You would never imagine she would say that. And we were at the airport, we were about to board a plane, I was going with them, I was translating for them. And then when I returned to Chile, I was with them in some conferences in Argentina, I thought, why did Daddy say that I am naive? I'm working hard, I'm doing all the service I can. And so I decided at some point, I said to my boss, I said, Ale, I'm going to leave the job. He said, where are you going? I said, well, I want to leave. She said, you can't leave. And I said, but I'm not getting enough. It's not enough to sustain our center, because in Brahma Kumaris, we all contribute to the service that we offer the community, because we don't charge anybody. So he said, you can't leave. And I said, well, but I can't manage. And he said, how much do you want to earn? I said, double, but working part-time. And he said, why didn't you tell me before? How do you think I felt? You know what echoed in my mind? Daddy's words saying, don't be naive. You see, so you may be hiding behind the fear of asking for a raise in your payment, and you don't even know that you are worth double for half the time. Huh? So how necessary it is to be connected in my own self-worth and understand the importance and the significance of my way of contributing to society. There's nothing to lose. There's nothing to fear. I was very grateful to God because I realized that all these different shifts in my life, it was because He is teaching me who I am. And this is why meditation is so important to us, because it's not so easy to bypass the voice of ego. Ego either makes us feel superior or inferior. Ego makes us compare with each other and makes us feel that I'm not as good as my elder brother or my whoever. You know, so we're caught up in all sorts of influences. But when we go inward, there are two voices. One is the voice of consciousness that speaks my truth, and the other is the voice of ego. Let's say I'm not very sweet, and I want to be sweet. So I want to start practicing. I want to be sweet, and ego says, you're not sweet. You get angry every day. Don't think that you're ever going to be sweet. No? But my inner voice, my truth, says that I am originally sweet. I am humble. And people may not think that. It doesn't matter. So I need to look into the eyes of the one who knows me forever. I need to look into the mirror of God's eyes. What does He think of me? What does He feel for me? Each and every one of His children are so dear and loved by the Supreme. Do I feel that worthiness? Do I feel worthy of His care and protection? So when we practice meditation, we want to make this relationship alive of I, the child, and my Supreme Parent. He is the father and the mother of the child. So when we need encouragement, we may think of Him as the father, but when we need forgiveness, we might think of Him as the mother, the feminine principle in God's energy. So when His light touches the soul, as much as when the sun touches a seed in the soil, it allows its free expression, and the full content of a seed blossoms into a magnificent tree. When the light of truth, of God, or the warmth of His unconditional love touches the soul, we blossom and we express freely who we really are. But we need this connection, this belonging. And I'm so happy to be saying this in this temple, because this is your practice, right? This is who you remember when you're here, with so much love, with so much respect. Maybe through prayer, we practice meditation, which is this silent communication, this dialogue, this relationship of who I am with whom, who knows me forever. So do you think we can be fearless in a world where everything is unstable? Do you think we can be fearless? Yes? Would you like to practice? Knowing more of myself, trusting, knowing others. Because when I learn how peaceful I am, what will I see in others? The vision I have of me is the vision I have of others. Right? We have a lovely slogan, and this is my closing comment. We have a slogan in the Brahma Kumaris that says that when I change, the world changes. We are heading to a very peaceful, beautiful time of humanity. This violence, this vulnerability is just a transition from the old to the new. And it starts with our thinking. It starts with pure feelings. It starts with repairing that which has gone wrong. Do you like the idea? Will we all give our finger of cooperation to God, who is creating a paradise on earth for all of us, His children? Yes? So should we finish with a meditation? Yes? So meditation is using the energy of thought to take us into the feeling of who I am, taking us into this invisible, silent connection with the Supreme, and allowing His energy to touch my heart. Okay? So I will just say a few words, and you can follow them with your mind if you like. So let's sit comfortable. This is something we can do wherever we are, whether we're at home, whether we're moving around. We take a deep breath and allow my body to relax. Feel that your legs and your arms, your hands are relaxed. Take a deep breath and allow your shoulders, your back and your neck to relax. And as I exhale, I will let go of any discomfort, any heaviness. I'll just let go. And now I will take all my attention inward to a very sacred space behind my eyes. And I become the observer of my presence. Of who I am. And I feel the energy, the living force that is expressed through my body. I am that living force. I am the energy of life itself. I am life itself. Pure spiritual energy. And as I go deeper into myself, I can feel the lightness, weightless, calm feeling of the peace that lies within me. I am peace. I am a peaceful being. Free from worries, free from all influence, beyond. And I dive deep within the feeling, the coolness, the lightness of peace. And I would take my awareness beyond my physical body, as if I could see my body from above. And I would go deep into silence, beyond this place, beyond anything mundane, beyond matter, into the sweet, silent home where all souls come from, into the supreme abode. And I am aware that I am just a being of light. Like a very tiny, shining star in the presence of the Supreme, the One who is ever peaceful, ever loving and pure, the One whose rays and vibrations of peace fill my heart and shine into every corner of the soul. I am in the presence of unconditional love, true love, God's love. The love that accepts me as I am, that frees me from guilt, that heals the wounds of the past. The love of my dreams is pure love, the love of God. And as I'm filled with unconditional love, I feel free. I don't need to think. I simply am the being of light. I am one with the Supreme. And in the awareness of who I am, in the joy of being who I am, I will bring back my attention to this physical body. And as I feel every breath, as I breathe in and out, I allow the vibration of peace, of love, to reach out to every part of my body. I allow that vibration to shine into the world, into your home, to your family, to your dear ones. And I take a deep breath, and as I open my eyes, I keep the deep feeling that no matter what happens around me, I am safe. I can always go back to my home of peace, to the loving protection, to the care of God, who is always only a thought away. Om Shanti. Om means I am. Shanti means peace. Can we all say Om Shanti? Om Shanti. Thank you very much.
Let there be peace on earth.